Hello, my name is Graham Ross. I'm a UK lawyer and mediator and have been involved in developments in online dispute resolution, including designing and helping to develop for over 22 years now, in other words, from the last century. And I also advise courts around the world, currently advising the courts in Ukraine on how to modernize their court systems, make them more fair, and importantly, make them more accessible to the public. Now, let me just pull up my slides, which I put together, especially for this event. You should be able to see them now. There we are. So I'm calling this talk ODR 2.0, the next phase. By that, I mean that hitherto you speak to most mediators about online dispute resolution, and they feel they've done it thanks to the pandemic. They've learned how to operate Zoom and conduct mediations on Zoom. Very important as that has been, it's really not helping to develop what ODR can do in the area of alternative dispute resolution. After all, when you mediate through Zoom, you're just mediating under the exact same process as you have always done, except that you're doing it at a distance. That's what one might call digitizing the process. What's more important is to develop systems that digitalize the process of alternative dispute resolution. And the difference is that rather than whereas digitize just emulates and copies the existing systems, it doesn't change the process, it just makes things more accessible. Digitalization is where technology can do more, can actually help mediators take clients through the resolution process in a different way. It increases the powers of the mediator to help bring about quicker and better resolutions. And that's what I'm really going to be talking about today. I'm going to give you two examples of ODR 2.0. These are systems that I like to say show the application of AI to dispute resolution, but not artificial intelligence, where the machine becomes the mediator, or becomes the judge, or becomes the arbitrator. But no, it's augmented intelligence, where the machine actually augments and adds to the skills and intelligence of the mediator, helping to do things he couldn't do without the technology. Okay, so that's the task for me today. ODR 2.0. So first I'm going to start with an example of what's called visual blind bidding by a company called Smartsettle, who I'm privileged to be an advisor to. They have two systems they're going to be showing today. And let's start with Smartsettle ONE. And this really helps the parties and helps the mediator to help the parties to reach a resolution on a number. The number, in most cases, will be a sum of money. Somebody wants a sum of money, and the other person's not too keen on providing it. How can technology help them come to an agreement much more quickly and more effectively than without technology? And this is what I hope you'll see is an example here of that you can apply with Smartsettle ONE. So imagine an insurance claim. So Tom was injured in an accident, and his lawyers and advisors say that his compensation should be in the sum of £65,000. The insurance company, Insurco, has made an offer of £49,000, which it feels is the most it can offer. And negotiations have ground to a halt. So they decide to try Smartsettle ONE's visual blind bidding tool to see if they can make some breakthrough. Now, this is what it looks like from the insurance company's perspective. So you see in Serco on the right, Tom, claimant on the left. Tom wants 65,000. These numbers represent thousands of pounds. And the Serco only want to offer 49. Now, what you're going to see is bidding here by both parties. The bidding that takes place above this line on the top section of the scale is what is seen by the other parties. So whatever the insurance company offers here, if it wants to increase and offer more than 49, Tom will see that. The key to this system is what you can see under in the lower section, the yellow flag. Now this flag can be moved, but wherever it goes, Tom will not see it. And similarly, Tom will be able to make hidden offers as well. Now let's just actually see this in operation. So insurer is online at the moment. It's one of the nice things about this system. The other party can be offline. It's asynchronous. You don't have to be online at the same time, although you can be. The green offer that has been increased to 50,000, but the insurance company has made a secret offer of 53,000. It's really prepared to go to 53 if a settlement is reached. From Tom's perspective, he's made an offer of 64,000, come down a little bit, not much. Now here in grey, for convenience, is the secret offer that Tom has made. It's in grey because in reality, it wouldn't be seen by the insurance company, but we're just showing it here so you can see where the secret offers have reached, and they haven't done very well. There's a huge gap here, 50 to 60, 10,000 pounds gap still, but that's just the first session. What this system does is nudge and encourage the parties to go a little bit further. They can, particularly given that the insurance company will be concerned that if it doesn't settle soon, they'll end up having to pay a lot of costs. It may be worth their while to go a little bit more than they would normally if it means they're paying less or even possibly no cost if it's yet to get into court. But they haven't got a settlement here. So let's move to session 2. Because they do things in sessions, there's this momentum to keep trying to reach agreement. And here you'll see some progress. The insurance company has increased its open offer to 52, not much, but in reality, it's made a huge move to 59,000 because it argues that this will save it a lot more in costs if this ends up in court. Tom's a little bit more cautious. He's gone to 62. So there's still a gap, but it's not much of a gap. It's only £3,000. But there is the end of session 2. They've not made a settlement, but they are much, much closer. And let's see what happens in the third session. There's an increase in the open offer, and the insurance company has gone further to 61,500. But look what's happened with Tom. In an effort to really get this settled, he's been prepared to go down to 58,000. So all of a sudden, these hidden offers have overlapped. And that means that anywhere within this overlap, any figure chosen here is acceptable to both parties. And in fact, this star that's appeared is really the indicator that the system has determined a settlement at 59,000. Now you might think, why was it not 59.5? So if we had Tom saying he's prepared to drop to 61, Insurco is prepared to go up to 58, that's 3,000. Surely the midpoint should be the settlement. Well, no, Smartsettle ONE doesn't do that, because if it did that, firstly, it would reveal what the last offer of the insurance company was by just doubling the gap. But more importantly, if you think about it, if you just split the difference of an overlap, it's actually giving us incentive to the party to hold back with his or her proposals, whereas the objective of Smartsettle ONE is to encourage the parties to settle as quickly as possible. So an algorithm comes into play here called to reward the early effort. So this is called reward early effort. And what it actually does is decide at the point that the offers overlap, in this case overlap by 3,000, which negotiator, which party made the smaller last move, the smaller last move, because the one who made the smaller last move had obviously made more early effort to reach settlement. In this case, it was Encirco, because the last move was 2,000, from 59,000 to 61,000, whereas Tom made quite a large jump to get in the zone of 4,000. And so it determined that it should give some benefit within this overlap to the insurance company. And as you see, that's why instead of settling at 59.5, settled at 59. So that gives a very small saving to the insurance company. And what if there's no overlap? Well, the system does give both parties an opportunity to inform it that they would be prepared to make a slight increase if it results in a settlement. Now here the system, well, what we've been looking at is how the system allows for negotiations to take place individually on one case, but an insurance company would be handling large volumes of disputes and negotiations at the same time. And so the system does allow for automated bidding. By that it means that you can tell the system what your bids should be in the various sessions, so they can be applied automatically. This is only useful where there is a company or organization dealing with large numbers of negotiations and wants to train its claims handlers on a certain policy. And this just makes the handling of multiple large volumes much more convenient. As well as negotiating, the system does allow for the parties to talk to each other with or without a mediator. Now, if a mediator's involved, then above the scale on which you move the flags when making offers and counter offers, there is an area for the mediation discussions to take place. Here you'll see 3 chat boxes. They can, by pressing the open out to the whole screen to make it easier, with the convenience there are 3. The one in the middle is the box in which the mediator can talk to both parties at the same time. And the ones on either side are the private confidential caucus discussions the mediator may wish to have in private with one or other or both of the parties. So that sort of emulates much of the process of mediation, and allowing for asynchronous chat to help the mediator encourage the parties to take a positive approach. If there isn't a mediation, then there's just the one chat box between the parties. As you'll see, here is that chat box sitting just above the negotiating panel. So some key takeaways. Smartsettle ONE is a standalone software as a service, and it can be used together with any other system of claims management and negotiation. You don't have to be mediating online totally. You can use it when you're mediating in person, if you prefer. It's important to know that no settlement is declared unless in a figure that is within the specified bidding of each party, as you have seen. This is not a case of the system determining what a settlement should be if it is outside of the instructions of the parties. There's no fee to use Smartsettle ONE, except that if the case does settle by using Smartsettle ONE, then there is a fee of 2% of the opening range. In other words, between the offer of the insurance company and the figure that the claimant requires. And what I like about these systems, they constantly nudge the parties to speed up settlement. It gets the parties, as also in the next one that I will show you, to focus a lot more on reaching a final agreement rather than arguing why he or she is right or wrong or whatever about the history that brought the dispute, the parties into dispute. This is a newspaper article how I helped parties in a small claim court case for £2,000 in England to settle their case, despite going through court-based mediation that was unsuccessful. The parties were quickly trained within an hour on using Smartsettle ONE, and within an hour of them both using it, they were able to reach a settlement. Now, the second system is called Smartsettle Infinity. This is for multiple issue disputes, which can be between multiple parties, 2 to any number of parties. And quick overview of it, what it does is allow packages of proposals in multi-issue disputes to be made openly by the negotiators, so the negotiators can put packages, but also by the machine. And then the machine is optimized using its knowledge of the preferences of each party for each of the elements of a proposal, terms and conditions in which there is a settlement, as it is informed by a skilled negotiator or mediator. All these packages can actually be put into the system and put forward anonymously by the negotiator. I'll explain when you see what I mean by that. Here's a screenshot of using Infinity in an employment claim. Now, any number of issues can be set up in the model to use here. Here we have, this is about an employee who has been dismissed, sacked, and feels that this was unfair, and he has a claim in law. He's claiming a basic award. There's not much ability to negotiate that because that's set out in the English law. And also a much larger compensatory award to compensate him for being out of work until he can find alternative employment. There's also an issue of whether or not the employer will give a reference and whether it's a good reference or a negative reference. And also whether the employee should be barred out for a number of years. For example, he could be in a service industry like hairdressers, barbers, and whatever. And it's tradition in those industries that employees are prevented from carrying out similar work for another company within a small area of the first one. And that's to avoid employees who've been dismissed trying to persuade customers of the old company to move over to his or her new business. So these are all the sort of elements that might want to be added into a settlement agreement. In each case, there is a scale, much like in Smartsettle ONE. On the right-hand side is the preferences of the employee, and on the left, the preferences of the employer. Now, here, this top right-hand corner is where proposals and offers of packages for all of these 4 items can be, it says here published, it now says on the table, there's a more accurate description. It's if they're placed there, then they can be seen by the other party. If they're placed here, this lower right section, they can only be seen by the person who's proposing them. Now there is a, if we start off here, we see that, for example, the main award compensation, the employee is wanting £12,000, but slightly hidden here, the employer is only wanting to offer £5,000. The employee wants a positive reference, the employer doesn't want to give one. The employee wants no years of bar out, whereas the employer wants 5. And in fact, in this particular scenario, that is what is in the contract of employment to begin with. Now, what the parties do is, and it would normally be a mediator trained in the use of Smartsettle Infinity, he would put together in discussion with the client, the parties, and he'd do this read side, what the party would feel is the most optimistic outcome. What's the best he could ever expect? And also what is unacceptable. So it's optimistic equals one, unacceptable equals the other. Now, because the system, I've got no time to really go into this at the moment, but in the system, there's a process where the parties, or in this case, a mediator, having discussed in detail and in confidence with each side, would be able to inform the system of the degree comparatively of preferences to each party. How important is each of these issues? How important, for example, to the employer is that there is a bar out here. And the system, knowing the relative importance and preferences of each party are in each of these 4 issues, applies an assessment, a number, a value. In this case, the optimistic is given a value of 40, which is very high, meaning it's very acceptable to that person. The unacceptable, not surprisingly, is given a value of only 1. That's computed by the augmented intelligence in the system. Now, the employee here decides to try for a midpoint, what might be a fair package. And here, and these are all color-coded, whenever there's a tick on the little box to the side of a package, it will appear what the 4 elements would be. In this particular case, he was happy to have 4,000 as a basic award. He's happy to reduce his 12,000 demand for compensatory down to 10,000, but it's on the condition he gets a neutral, at least, reference, and he's only barred out for 1 year, not the 5 that the employer wants. Now, these packages are not yet shared with the other side. Now we see, moving further on with the negotiation, a number of packages have now been shared with the other side. And these are either can be in the name of, in this case, there's a package 1, the name of the company XYZ Limited. But you can put forward packages and give it the title of a suggestion. That means anonymous as to who made the suggestion, who put forward this proposal. And this is important. A suggestion can be either a package put forward by the party in question, or it could be a package that's been identified by the machine from all the knowledge it knows of how the mediator informed it of how important each of these elements are to each party, augmented by the proposals and packages each party put forward, especially the ones it decides to put on the table and share with the other side. I should add that whenever a package is put on the table, i.e. seen by both parties, and accepted, because there's a routine here where you can tell the system that you find that proposal acceptable. Whenever that happens, if both parties accept it, an agreement is reached. And in this particular screen, you'll see here the words baseline agreement for package 6. Now, package 6, it has a value of 32, not too bad for the employee, because considering his optimistic package down here was valued at slightly more at 40. Now, the package 6 here, what this amounts to is a basic award of 4,000, a compensatory award, not of the 12,000 he initially wanted, but 10,425, a neutral reference. But here's very importantly, and the employee says, I'll reduce that to 10,000, the compensatory, as long as I don't have any bar out at all. And it would appear that that was acceptable to the employer. It may be, although the employee did sign to say in his employment contract, if I leave, I will not work for, say, 10 years or 5 years in that industry within the near vicinity in which I used to work. It may be that the employer isn't really bothered about that. It may be this employee decides cannot do any damage to the business of the employer, and therefore it's worth it for the employer to agree a 0 bar out if he's receiving less money than the employee was demanding. So there's a sort of a compromise. And of course, being guided by the values put on the system in these boxes, you can see that the system does this with knowledge. So the system would know, because the mediator had informed it, that the employer was not too bothered about the bar out. So that was a way of reaching some agreement. And it's turned out that by making these compromises, both sides accepted an agreement. And what's really interesting with Smartsettle Infinity, because of the knowledge it's learned about the preferences of each party within each of the issues, it tries to see if there's any value being left on the table and offer an improved package. And in fact, it has done that here with package number 7, where the compensation has been reduced even further by agreement of both parties to 9,679. There's still a bar out of naught. Why has the employee agreed to reduce the compensation to 9,579? Well, you see the reason here, because he's done that on the basis that there would be not just a neutral reference that was in package 6, but a positive reference saying a very positive reference. It will make it easier for the employee to gain further employment elsewhere. And so the system actually helped the parties to reach a better agreement than they had agreed amongst themselves. This improved settlement will only take place and have effect if both parties tick to say and tell the system that they find it acceptable. So let's have some takeaways here about Smartsettle Infinity. It's augmented, not of artificial intelligence. It augments the skills and intelligence of skilled negotiators and mediators, informing it of the preference of the parties after, of course, speaking to the parties in confidence. And no settlement is declared unless it's been agreed by both parties. With that knowledge given in secret by both parties, together with how each side negotiates, Infinity predicts proposals more likely to be acceptable to both sides. So the parties can put forward proposals anonymously that masquerade as being created by the machine, thus removing bias. And bias is the big blockage in any negotiation to reaching agreement. You know, that situation where parties sometimes appear as if they will never accept a proposal if it comes from the parties, the other side, the people they're in dispute with. Here, the negotiation and the offers and packages can be looked at in an entirely neutral way. And it also widens the negotiations vision, I think. So the problem where you have multiple issues and conditions, you're often looking at them one by one through a narrow lens. Infinity overcomes that by a simple one-screen display that enables the mediator and the parties to quickly overview packages of proposals and the relative and comparative benefits, preferences for each one. And finally, it has, because of the knowledge that it learns of the negotiations interest of each parties, Infinity can find value left on the table and therefore reach agreements that have additional benefits to each party that the other party it knows is prepared to concede on. The Smartsettle Infinity is an extremely powerful system. We've just been looking at it in a simple case of employment with 4 issues, 4 scales. How about a really complicated negotiation? And here we're looking at a role play we set up to see if Smartsettle Infinity could actually negotiate a ceasefire in Ukraine. We demonstrated this live at the 21st International Forum on Online Dispute Resolution, which was held last May at University College Dublin in Ireland. And within a 2-hour session, a settlement was reached. If you want to have a look at that and see the video of that negotiation, here's a URL with a tiny URL, tinyurl.com/ODR 4 Ukraine. And you'll be able to watch the video there. There are 2 videos, one from the Ukrainians negotiators' perspective and one from the Russian negotiators' perspective. Thank you very much. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions by email or in any other way. But if you'd like to try out either Smartsettle ONE or Smartsettle Infinity, that is possible. That can easily be arranged. Just drop me a line at g.ross@theresolver.com. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm.